Okay, this is part two because we got cut off after 20 minutes. That was a long story, but this is conjunction with the previous video. I was explaining the whole story and I was telling you about the settlement agreement and the trust and how he owned half the house and he was in a liver coma and hospitalized 100 days, extremely ill. 90% of people die within 6 months, and he was still alive 5 years later. And how Yehuda Ferris and his shyster lawyer, who has so far pocketed 60 grand, whereas my sisters and I didn't get anything. I showed you that the trust says we're supposed to get 30,000 each plus 10% interest a year. Every year we don't get it until paid in full. And if we don't get paid the 30,000 in 9 months of his death, and he died in January of 2020, that the debt would become a permanent interest-bearing lien on the property until paid in full. Well, it's 5 years later, and he sold the property for 80,000, but the whole house is worth 2 million, so my brother's half is worth 1 million. Yet he's acting like he's a pious rabbi who never did anything wrong, never ate pork, never worked on Shabbos. But he can go around stealing my inheritance, my sister's inheritance, and leave us like dogs in the street. We don't have any money. We don't have any place to live. We don't have anything. We lost our brother after 6 years. COVID destroyed the economy and terrified the human race. And you would think that any normal person who is a trustee under such horrific circumstances, where a man was dying of cancer for 6 years and his siblings lived under the shadow of his death for 6 long years, the trauma and the misery and the depression and the sadness, and then COVID shut down the world, you'd think a trustee would provide what the man wanted for his own siblings. And you would think someone that claims to be a man of the cloth especially would do that, but he didn't. We don't have anything. We got $4,000 5 years ago. Now here's where it gets ugly. He tried to evict me from the trust property right in the middle of the pandemic. So this is a story of death. The 2 non-Jewish daughters, as I mentioned to you, didn't see their own father in 6 years of cancer. That was a murder story. That contributed to his death. Any doctor on earth or in heaven knows that fact. Any nurse on earth or in heaven knows if a man has terminal cancer and his own daughters, who he raised from birth, never call him, never speak to him, never say hello, never contribute a penny to his care, never send him a Hanukkah card, a birthday card, that contributed to his death. That is murder in medical terms. Ask any doctor, any nurse, any medical assistant, any orderly. Everybody knows this. We see this kind of garbage in the hospital. We know just the type. And we hate those people, trust me. So here we go. I got to hurry up and wrap this up. They never saw him in 6 years. They contributed to his death. Then I'm living with my brother for a year, that last year of his life. He got a court order and kicked out his girlfriend because he wanted to die in his own house. She didn't want to share. He said, I'm dying of cancer. You don't want to share? She said, no. So he went to the court, and the court said, okay, lady, get out. He's coming back in. He has a right to die in his own house. Okay? And the doctors wrote a letter to the judge and said, this man is dying. And the judge said, okay, you can die in your own house. So since I was a caregiver 5 years, wherever he went, I went. So then he gets in the house. He goes into a liver coma 5 times. He's hospitalized 150 days that last year. I'm draining fluid from his abdomen and his lung sac the last 4 months. And so then he passes away in ICU in January of 2020. I blocked every time they tried to put him in a nursing home. No, he's coming home with me. Whatever they did was no, he's coming home with me. They wanted to cut off his medical treatment and let him die at home with hospice garbage, a morphine pump. I'm like, not my brother. You can take that and try to pull that garbage on someone else, but I know too much. Being a night shift hospital worker for 25 years. Give me a break. Anyway, so he dies in ICU comfortably. And then that's January 22nd, 2022. March 19th, that was January 22nd, 2020. He died. And March 19th, 2020, that's less than 7 short weeks later, the entire world as we know it gets shut down because of COVID. You know it. Everybody remembers, right? We couldn't get out of the house. So I'm stuck in the property. Where was I supposed to go? I just spent 6 years taking care of my brother instead of 6 years taking care of my career. I quit my job and school, at 3 jobs and school. And that last year, when my brother moved in his house, that was a 24/7 operation. I had to get him his 18 medicines around the clock. I had to drive for him, cook, clean, call the pharmacist, adjust the medication, take him to the doctor's appointments, call the ambulance. If he lost consciousness, 7 times, okay? And that was an incredible amount of work. All my money went down the drain, okay? When he died, I had like $400 in my pocket. When he first moved in the house a year before he died, I had like $9,000, but it went to gasoline, went to food. His daughters were earning $100,000 a year as occupational therapists, but they couldn't be bothered with their own dying father, okay? Plus he's Jewish. They're not, because their mother wasn't, so they probably hated him. So I'm in the house, and then the COVID pandemic is a dire threat. People in Berkeley are dying like flies. Whole families in Berkeley are dying like flies. Whole neighborhoods are dying like flies, right? And I know about it. I'm talking to people. They say, you know that guy, you know that family, the mother got it, the father got it, the sister, and they all died, right? So everybody's terrified of dying too, right? No vaccines, nothing. The whole world is turned upside down. So in the middle of the pandemic, over a year, 16 months before the eviction moratorium was even lifted in Berkeley, Alameda, let alone California, Mr. Yehuda Ferris, now look carefully here. It says, attorney for trustee Rabbi Yehuda Ferris, right? This is his, okay, I'm getting his license number wrong. It's 154219, right? Rogers. It says, in second amended petition for request for instructions. This is how trustee attorneys milk trust. They go to court and ask questions so they can get paid $500. They can drain all the money. He did. He got $67,000. We've gotten nothing. Okay, so let's move on to some details here, right? So it says here, beneficiary has been residing on the property. He's paid no rent. They didn't ask. Rogers told me to stick around, and there was nowhere to go because everyone had to shelter in place. Where was I supposed to go, right? So then they sent me a letter in the middle of the pandemic saying, get out in 2 months. And I'm like, you want me to get out in 2 months? Where am I supposed to go? COVID is killing hundreds of thousands of people across the world, including California. This was a year. This was 16 months before the eviction moratorium was lifted. But so therefore the threat of COVID was still heavy in the air. There was no vaccines. We didn't know if the vaccines were even going to work, right? Nevertheless, I get this threatening letter, which I can't show you in this video, and another one says, get out in 2 months or else you and your sisters will never get a dime. And so I called Rabbi Ferris 150 times and his attorney. I said, you want me to go? Remember what the trust said? $30,000 each plus 10% interest a year until paid in full or a lien on the property. So here it is, 2.5 years after my brother died. It's about $37,000. They didn't offer nothing. They didn't even answer the phone. I called 25 people. I said, will you tell Ferris to call me? He didn't answer. Did the lawyer answer? No. So what am I supposed to do? Supposed to walk out in the street and die of COVID without a penny? I just spent 6 years making sure my brother didn't die. Gave up my career, gave up my work, gave up my job, 3 jobs, and dropped out of school because I didn't want my brother turning blue at 3 in the morning. Okay? So, because I'm a medical person, right? I'm a medic. So next thing I know, there's a 30-day notice on the door. Okay? And here we go. And this is evidence of Yehuda Ferris trying to evict an elderly person out of his own brother's house after he died of cancer in the middle of the COVID pandemic. Let's look again. This is stamped October 31st, Halloween. How creepy. Day of the Dead. October 31st, 2022. So let's go down to the nitty-gritty. This is where he is threatening an eviction against an elderly Jew. This is anti-Semitism. It says, since the settler's death, the brother has been living at the property. Well, there's an eviction moratorium. Did you give him his $37,000? Of course not. He's paid no rent. Where was he supposed to pay rent? He couldn't even find these people. His brother couldn't find his daughters or his ex-girlfriend. How could he find them? He couldn't have paid the rent if he tried. Petitioner is informed. This is Ferris, Rabbi Ferris, is informed and believes thereon that the mother and the daughters, and more than one of them, intend to occupy the property and make it their residence. Okay? So, but they can't because, remember, in the first video, it says that they're not allowed to own but 50.1%, and it's dependent on a settlement agreement, right? Remember, without the permission of the rabbi or the other owner of the property, Ziplin's share of the trust estate be charged the attorney's fees and costs the petitioner will incur on behalf of the trust in evicting him. But there's an eviction moratorium for the next 16 months, and there's people dying like flies. How many people were dying of COVID in 2022? Hundreds of thousands in California, in America, across the world. Yet and still, greedy trustee just foaming at the mouth, trying to kill this poor guy's brother. The brother's dead. Now he's trying to kill his brother with COVID. The brother died of cancer. Now he's trying to kill the brother with COVID. He says he was a settler for a period of time. He was residing on the property, and the settler was suffering a terminal illness. The settler invited his brother, that's right, to live with him and settle on the property, and could provide valuable caretaking assistance to his settler. He did, in fact, provide valuable caretaking to the settler. He also named beneficiaries of the trust, right? But now he's getting schizophrenic. He said after he died in January 20, he remained on the property. The trustee's lawyer told me to stay on the property, and there was nowhere to go because COVID shut down the world. Soon after the settler's death, COVID pandemic, we didn't want him to leave. It's still going on at this point. For humanitarian reasons, the petitioner didn't immediately seek to evict him. But this is beginning in May 2022. The COVID pandemic wasn't even over for 2 more years. He was given until July 31st to vacate. Yeah? With what was he going to vacate with? And where was he going to go? It was illegal to leave your domicile in Alameda County and city of Berkeley, let alone it was a threat to one's life, okay? However, he refused to leave the property, has also paid no rent to Zach. Yeah, he worked 24 hours a day for his brother. That was rent, okay? Petitioner is informed and believes that the gentleman that has a mental health condition that has contributed to his belief that he has a rightful owner or occupant of the property. Yeah, he found the first trust in the property and it said give him and his sisters 25% ownership. And he filed a trust contest. So the court had yet to decide which trust is real, the one that gives him and his sisters some ownership or the one that they came up with when he was in a coma. How do you write a trust when you're in a coma? Okay, we got to close this thing. I only got 3 more minutes. So, intention to evict him and a share of cost of attorney's fees. So now not only he wants to evict him in the middle of the pandemic, but he wants to charge him attorney's fees. That's the petitioner, that's Ferris, and the 2 daughters who killed him by absence, on the other hand, and to share equally in the attorney's fees associated with evicting him from the property. What about the eviction moratorium? And what about offering him his beneficial share? And it says, here we got 2 more minutes. Fees and related to unlawful detainers. The petitioner, that's Rabbi Ferris, he's not a rabbi, fees to evict him, otherwise be borne by the entire trust estate, should be charged against his share only. Okay, so he took care of his brother for 6 years. Now he can't leave because the city, state, and federal government says because of COVID you're not allowed to leave in May 2022. But now you want to charge him attorney's fees for a cost of evicting him when it's illegal to even evict anyone. The eviction moratorium didn't end till November 23. This is May 22. Therefore, the petitioner has set forth, hey, judge, can his beneficial share of the trust be charged with attorney's fees related to the instant petition as well as fees and costs in other disputes? Okay, I forgot something here, but I'm going to have to leave it in the other one. It says if the $30,000 isn't paid here's what it says. Maybe I've got 1 more second here. It says in the trust, right? It says $30,000, right? It says, okay, the clock is ticking. If payments, there's $30,000 each. If payments under paragraph are not paid within 9 months of the settler's death, they shall become a lien on 49% of the settler's property and shall incur interest at the legal rate until paid. Well, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Yehuda Ferris threatening to evict a senior Jewish person from his own brother's house before the court decided if he's part owner, and in the middle of the COVID pandemic. And to this day, 5 years later, the man's brother and his 2 sisters, they got nothing. But $4,000 5 years ago for emergency COVID supplies. This is criminal behavior, ladies and gentlemen. This is how the Bernie Madoffs of Berkeley operate, okay? Take heed and be careful that you're not the next victim.